I'm Steve Walker Duncan, and I'm on a quest. As a professional chef for 25 years and an instructor at the Camosun College Culinary Arts program, I truly believe we have some of the best food in the world right here on the West Coast. Join me in discovering some of these culinary treasures.
We're here in the majestic north, beautiful Smithers, British Columbia. We have majestic mountains, we have beautiful alpine meadows. I really do feel a Sound of Music moment coming on. Let's go and see what Smithers has to offer.
Well, that's quite enough of that. Nestled in the Bulkley Valley, the town of Smithers has a distinctly alpine feel, which perfectly matches the surrounding scenery. A local bylaw keeps downtown buildings in tune with the theme, while at the end of the main street, visitors are greeted by the town's mascot, Alpine Al. Obviously, the Smithereens are not afraid to blow their own trumpet. Smithers is home to some great traditional family businesses like Paul's Bakery, opened over 50 years ago by Paul Sickus.
He was from Holland originally. He was a baker there. My father actually took it over in 1963.
Okay, so it really has been passed on from generation to generation.
Yeah,
what a fabulous story. There's not as many businesses like that left, is there? It just doesn't seem to happen these days.
No, definitely not. I don't know why or what the reasoning is why we've been able to do it, but I guess the product keeps people coming back. A lot of the bread that we do here, we've done for a long time, so it's kind of traditional. Some of the recipes are new, like some of the multi-grains and stuff we've developed over time as people want them or whatever. But as far as the breads we make, they've been kind of pretty much the same since we started.
Baking is popular here. Just up the main street is Schimmel's Bakery Cafe, a favorite stop, and no wonder looking at their fantastic pastries. Out back, I found baker Wade Zeiler expertly preparing an enormous sheet of puff pastry.
So it's quite an art manipulating this much pastry, isn't it, without tearing it and stretching it?
It can be, yeah, it can be. The more you practice it, and that goes, as you know, with everything.
Yep.
The more you practice, the more proficient you get at it.
Yep, yep.
Next step is docking the pastry.
Puff pastry is made up of 1,000 layers of very, very thin dough with butter in between each layer.
Mm-hmm. The butter actually seals the little cracks and crannies that the steam would escape through.
Yep.
And then it traps it in, and the steam just pushes it upwards.
So what we do with the docking is we're actually putting holes in it to allow that steam to escape evenly.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Okay, it's time for me to have a go.
And then diagonally on the way back, if you like.
Okay. Oh, so you dock it very, very well.
Yes.
After docking, it's time to divide it into strips using this neat device. Finally, a cutting wheel, and job done. Ready for the oven.
Okay, Steve, this is the finished product that we make.
Oh, look at that.
The vanilla slice.
Yeah?
Yeah, that's one of our really good sellers.
I'm in Telqua, near Smithers, visiting Foxhole Bakery, a small rural bakery that grinds its own flour and even grows some of its own wheat. Ursula Yecker is showing me this year's crop.
And what makes this different from regular wheat?
It's a ancient grain, and it hasn't been genetically modified at all.
Okay. So what are the benefits, or what drives you to grow and work with alternate grains as opposed to sort of the standard wheats?
Well, because it is such a small amount that we're growing, it just seems kind of a nice fit to try something. If it does work, it's a bit of a novelty, and if it doesn't work, well, it just, yeah, it's not that
No harm,
big.
no foul kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't know.
It seems like a good spot. It's high. It should be fairly well drained. You get good sun. And
Yeah, it's good southern exposure here for sure. Yeah.
Back at the bakery, Ursula has got the cookie dough out.
So what shape should we do?
Well, what have you got there? These are some pretty interesting looking cutters.
There's the fox.
Now, these are made from olive oil tin cans.
Yeah, actually.
So you make your own cutters?
Yep.
This is fabulous. So we've got a fox, we've got a dove or a bird, or
Yeah.
penguin, a fish, and a turkey, and a bat.
Or this actually is a peacock.
Well, a peacock.
But it could be used as a turkey.
Well, I think since we're at the foxhole, we should do the fox. We should do the fox cookie,
Okay,
shouldn't we?
sure.
Okay.
So Steve, here are our cookies.
Look at these.
Oh, they're still a bit hot, actually.
Wow.
Yeah,
Look at
they
those.
turned out
They
all
look
right.
great, don't they? So, and then we're going to decorate them.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have a specific icing style for all of them, or do you kind of do free form?
It used to be that I would make them quite different.
Yeah.
Now that we're making like over 100 of these, decorating them, it's quite a process to make them all different.
I can tell you've done this more than a few times.
Yeah.
And then just fill in the gaps. As they say in the bakery world, piece of cake.
Do you want to try it?
Okay,
Go at it.
we'll have a go at one of these. So, and this is just a royal icing?
Yep.
Just a bit there, we'll come back and do that one. And so there we go from this one down to there. Something like that.
That's great. Yeah.
Okay, and then we do our just filling in all the spaces. I don't know, I think I'll probably be here a little bit longer than you were, so doing these one after the other, but I guess with practice, you.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
How's that?
It's early morning, and I'm out on the lake somewhere in the backwoods of northern BC. Local chef Chris Luther has kindly offered to cook trout, if I can catch some. Fortunately, I have excellent guides, Kerry and Steve from local outfitters Oscar's Source for Adventure, and they are confident that we're going to catch some trout. Eventually.
So it's an exercise in patience fishing, isn't it?
Patience is the virtue of a good fisherman.
Right.
And at last, patience bears fruit.
Oh,
Well, almost.
Oh, you got away.
oh.
But then, our luck begins to change. The weather improves, and so does the fishing.
Nope. Here we go. There we go. Beautiful, nice work.
And by the end of the day, we have enough for a feast. And it's time to head back to the Log Pile Lodge, the stunning log home built by Chris and his wife Barb when they moved here from Switzerland.
Chris, thank you very much for having us in your kitchen.
Well, it's great to have you here. You're really nice people so far, you know.
So what are we going to do tonight with these trout?
Okay, so start putting some oil. Here comes the good part.
Here comes the good stuff. That's right.
So now I put some shallots in here.
So the shallots are just starting to go nice light golden brown there.
Yeah.
And then goes the
So-
sage. We're going to cut you crisp up the sage.
They want a crisp, yeah, I want some crisp sage, exactly. Then I'll start with the potatoes here. Throw in the jar.
Okay. So the potatoes were pre-cooked.
The potatoes were pre-cooked, yeah.
So
Yeah.
just brown, put a little bit of color on, a little
Yeah.
bit of browning.
And it has to be a firm potato, like Yukon Gold or
Yeah.
something like that. And I personally just like Swiss chard. Everybody came in here, oh, what, you put rhubarb in the potatoes?
Just trying to get a little color on the backs of the fish there. Yeah, I see what you're doing.
The apples,
All that's in there, potatoes, chard, and apples.
yeah. And now first we start.
Little seasoning in there. And then your parsley and your chives in at the last minute
Yeah.
so they stay nice and green.
So it's nice and green. Fish out here. And then see if they turn out okay.
Guys.
Now,
comes the difficult part, and I hope that I don't screw up.
Oh, we're gonna fill in the fish.
So we'll see.
Cooked beautifully, so the skin just peels right off. So just split down the lateral line. Look at how that just falls off the bone.
That's why fish is not always my favorite fish, because there's too much work.
Too much work involved, too many bones.
Too many bones, yeah. Special thing actually with the trout is raspberries from our garden. Raspberries go in the butter because raspberries have also quite a bit of acidity, right? And so that goes well with the fish.
Oh, Chris, this looks fabulous. This looks.
So,
Do you have time to join me?
Sure.
This looks wonderful. Look at the colors on the plate. We're going to have to try some of this trout. That is so good. That is so good. Those raspberries are genius.
Back in Smithers the next morning, I'm at the sausage factory, which, as the name suggests, sells sausages. Many of them are made in the store from traditional recipes. The process begins with a giant mincer. The spices are mixed in, and then they get stuffed.
Wow, look at that. And they're all perfect.
They're all perfect.
They're all...
I tell the machine how big I want the sausages to be.
Okay, so you preset all this.
I preset everything. Right now I'm putting 33 grams of meat in each one of these.
How many sausages do you guys make at a busy time?
In the fall we do up to 4,000 pounds in a day.
In a day?
In a day.
That's a lot of sausages.
It's a lot of sausage,
And that's,
yeah.
that's the whole range, from pork to beef to...
That's all of our store stuff plus customers.
Wow.
Bonnie used to link sausages by hand, so she showed me how it should be done. I think I might need a bit more practice.
So I lost my link on the last one there.
I better start linking again or you'll never catch up to me.
Bonnie's obviously much better at it than I am and done a few more than I've ever done. Smithers was fabulous. We had such a great time up there. And today I'm delighted to welcome Bob Anderson into the kitchen with us today.
Thank you very much.
From Fortis, BC.
Yes.
Bob, thank you very much for coming in.
It's a pleasure.
I've got a great winter dish today,
Excellent.
which is filling and warm and hearty. But first thing we have to do, we've got some nice chorizo sausage here in an oven-proof dish. We're going to throw this into an oven at 400 degrees. And then we can carry on talking while that's doing its
Excellent.
thing. So, what is it you actually do for Fortis?
What do I do? Well, I have the dubious honor of working with a bunch of great professionals that really look for sustainable, safe, reliable energy solutions. We offer energy solutions such as geo-exchange, district energy systems, of course natural gas, which is still a staple product of ours, and in certain areas we are also the supplier of electricity. And it's important that we don't just think you can flip a switch if you think of it in those terms and move from what we have now to something that is ultra sustainable and renewable.
Right.
There's a transition period that needs to happen, and what happens is what we're finding is that more often it's a hybrid situation where perhaps a large building traditionally would have been built all natural gas is now partially natural gas and partially geo-exchange. And is ready in the event of the opportunity to connect to a district energy system.
Right.
And that's where you create the efficiencies, the big gains, reducing the carbon footprint, and also just getting equipment that's newer, more efficient.
It actually works properly.
Works properly, going from a 60% efficient to a 90% efficient gas furnace, for example, makes a huge difference in our communities, in the carbon footprint, and of course in the pocketbook.
So, a little bit about our dish that we're making today.
Great.
We're doing a traditional English dish called toad in the hole.
One of my favorites.
And it's Yorkshire pudding with sausages. And in this case, we're going to use nice spicy chorizo sausages. So what we've got here is just our flour. If I can get you, Bob, to put me a good pinch of salt and a good pinch of pepper in here. What I've got here is I've got 2 eggs and a cup and a half of milk. I've got 3/4 of a cup of flour in there. We'll just mix our dry ingredients together. The key here is not to overmix.
Right.
So we want to make sure our liquid is mixed properly first, because if we put our eggs in there, by the time we've beaten our eggs, it's overmixed. There we go, Bob. I'm going to give you a turn on the mixer for the whisk there. So do you do much cooking at home?
I do a fair bit of cooking at home. It's you don't get to look it's like this without enjoying a little bit of cooking. You know?
So that looks great. What we're going to do with that now is we're just going to basically really quickly incorporate that into the flour. So just take the flour, make a little bit of a well in the center. And if I can just get you to dump all that in there,
sure,
right in the middle.
I'm glad you're telling me the secret about this, because Yorkshire pudding is one of my favorites, but I'm an
They're one of those
failure
enigmas.
at it.
So our liquids and our flour is just brought together there, and we're just going to give that a really quick, light whisk. A couple of quick stirs, and that's it. A few lumps in there is no problem at all.
All right.
You don't want to mix that any more than that. What you want to do with this is just let this rest for a few minutes. 10, 15 minutes is usually enough. So while that's resting, over here I've got my pan on. I'm just going to give that a little bit of heat. We've got 2 medium red onions, sliced up nice and finely. I've got a little bit of oil here, a couple of tablespoons worth, and we'll give this a little bit of extra heat. And of course, nothing better than natural gas to cook on the
I couldn't agree with you more.
So in with those onions. So what we're going to do is we're just going to cook these down nice and gently so that they don't go brown. Okay, we don't want them to color too much, but we want to get all that acid out of there. Right. Because of course onions have got a lot of acid in there, but once you get rid of the acid, you're left with a lot of sugar. So I'm just going to give that one more little quick whisk. I'm just going to put a little drop of hot water into it, just to bring that temperature up. You don't need a lot. As I say, all we're trying to do is get that temperature high enough so that when it hits the oven, it's going to create steam as fast as possible.
Wow.
Okay.
Looking good. You know, question in regards to the sausage itself, most people give them a little bit of a poke before they go in. What's the reason?
Depends how you're cooking them.
Okay.
If you're cooking them in a frying pan, it's not a bad idea based on the fact that they will expand within the casings. But at the same time, we're cooking these quite gently and slowly, so you should be fine.
Don't need to.
And they're fairly small. The bigger the sausages, so the sort of the big bratwurst,
right,
they're the ones that, again, if you think about the steam comparison, as that steam expands, it's likely to burst them. But the smaller ones, it's not quite such an issue. And then we pour that Yorkshire pudding mix in there, cover all those sausages. Let's throw that in there.
Well, I got the oven for you.
If you grab the oven for me, that will be most appreciative. There we go.
There we go.
Perfect. Now, they will take about 25 to 30 minutes.
Okay.
Okay. Don't open the oven door. Okay. Remember, what we're trying to do is we're trying to create steam and create lift. If you open the oven door, you lose the heat, the temperature drops, any expansion that's happened up to that point will collapse.
Right on.
So at this point, we just leave the oven door closed. 25 to 30 minutes, we can just take a little peek if you don't have a window. But as I say, you really want to make sure you keep that heat in there and let that expansion happen so that your eggs can cook and your flour can set.
Right on.
Okay. So our onions here are breaking down quite nicely. They won't take too long at all, and they're coming along quite nice. I'm going to give them just a little tiny slug more of fat there because we're going to make a roux.
Okay.
With this. Now, a roux is basically flour and fat, which is going to be the thickener.
Two of my most favorite ingredients in the world.
You can't beat them, can you? You can't beat them at all. So, what else has Fortis got on the cards there, Bob? Because there must be lots of new things coming.
One of the newer things that is happening in and around North America, on-demand water heaters are becoming much more popular.
Yeah.
The technology has really come along to the point where an item about the size of a briefcase that can literally be bolted onto a wall replaces your 40-gallon hot water heater.
Right. And you're not keeping 40 gallons of hot water hot all the time. You turn it on, you get hot water, you turn it off, there's no more energy being used.
The Europeans figured that out a while ago. We're just catching up.
So if you have a look at our onions here, Bob, you see
great.
the bottom of the pan? It's just gummy and syrupy. That's those sugars. We've got rid of that acidity. Okay. Just a one or two of the little pieces is coloring, which is fine. When you're making a roux, okay, the only thing you really need to remember is that you have equal quantities of flour and fat. So for my 2 tablespoons of fat I put in there, I want 2 tablespoons of flour.
Sure.
Okay. So I'm just going to very gently sprinkle the flour over there. And what I'm going to ask you to do, Bob, if you can stir that in quite thoroughly for me.
Now, a little bit of stickiness on the bottom of the pan,
that's
okay.
Fine. Yeah, we'll clear that up in a second when we add that stock to it. We've got some beef stock here. Now you want to add this about 1/3 at a time. Add it in 3 batches because if you add it all at once, your flour might be potentially lumpy. So if you see what happens here, that liquid takes all that sticky stuff off the bottom, and it just lifts up. Okay,
right.
so Bob, I'm going to hand over the magic spoon to you.
Excellent.
And just stir that gently. You can pour the rest of your stock in, and it should incorporate nice and evenly. We've got a nice smooth liquid at the bottom there.
Lovely.
And that's it. Just gently bring that all together, and then we let this simmer for 10-15 minutes. There's our onion gravy done.
Excellent.
Oh, look at that, sir.
Magical.
Look at that. And that is your traditional toad in the hole.
Looks great.
Look at those little toads poking their heads out.
Excellent.
Beautiful, light Yorkshire pudding mix. We just get a nice big ladle of that sweet onion gravy. Thank you very much.
The pleasure's been mine. Thank you.
Thank you. Come back.
It's delicious.
Bob, thank you very much for coming
pleasure.
in.
My
It's been an
pleasure.
absolute pleasure working with you. And those are some of the flavors of Smithers. So how do you tell the difference between a fresh egg and a stale egg? This is how. This is a fresh farm egg. When we crack this, look how high up it sits. See how we've got the separate white, the inner white, and the yolk sitting way up high? And this egg here, not so fresh. If your eggs are flat and the white all looks the same, they're not very fresh. Here we are with the irreplaceable Mr. Rod Phillips. Thank you very much for joining us again. Now, we've got toad in the hole.
Yeah.
What's your recommendation?
Well, naturally, you'd think red wine.
Right.
Sausage, red wine, meat, red wine. Long gone are those days, in my opinion. So in this case, what I picked out was the sweet onions and the sweetness of the Yorkshire.
Yep.
Now, the spiciness and the weight of this sausage, you need to have a bigger, richer white wine. But I thought these particular white wines would go better with that dish than a red wine would.
Right.
So we're going to go to France this time. This is the Nord Sud by Laurent Miguel Viognier.
Beautiful color.
It is,
Beautiful
isn't it?
color.
Now
It's
this
gold.
this is a little bit older, and white wines get more color as they age.
Oh, you're not kidding.
Yeah, get that oily richness, eh?
That's a mouthful.
Yeah, it is.
That's for a white
It is
wine, that's a
big
mouthful.
And that'll pick up all the sweetness in the sweet onions, all the sweetness from the eggs in the Yorkshire, and it'll pick up the weight of the sausage.
That's a nice white wine.
Now this wine here, this is one of the other irreplaceable and somewhat iridescent Chardonnays.
It's got that glimmer to it, that
Exactly.
shine. Yeah.
Exactly. No, this is the 2009 Red Rooster Chardonnay. This won gold medal at the World Chardonnay Championships.
Really?
So over 800 Chardonnays from around the world were put in the championships, and this one won gold.
Got a gold. That's a beautiful
Isn't that
Chardonnay.
great?
And I have to confess, I'm not a huge Chardonnay fan, but that's
Well, you're
really
bigger
nice.
than I am. But one of the things about good Chardonnay is that it deserves some oak. Most people are afraid of oak in their Chardonnays. The trick is that oak doesn't hurt a Chardonnay unless it's out of balance.
That's right, and that's the key. I was just going to say the key word is balance.
Exactly. Now, one of the classic things, of course, with Toad in the Hole is having a nice, rich beer with it. And I've chosen the Farmhand Ale by Driftwood. That's a Belgian-style Saison. Now, Saison is designed to be a little bit lighter in alcohol, lighter on the palate. But again, it'll have a lot of that malty sweetness. It'll pick up.
That being said, it's got a very rich color.
It does. Now, that comes from the malt.
Okay.
That is the color of the malt that they're using. Pick up the nose, though.
Wow.
Isn't that
Wow.
good? Almost caramel.
That's right. And I'm just thinking onions and that.
Exactly.
Perfect partners.
Now, just that little carbonation there is nice and fresh. It'll keep the palate lively and fresh.
It's nice and rounded and beautiful. Rod, again, I'm astounded. You've come up with something out of left field, but they all work. I don't know how to top that, Rod. Thank you once again.